see another view and another aspect to farmers' protests in Europe. You're looking at piles of corn that were dumped earlier this week out of 8 train cars in the nation of Poland. Police say the cars came from neighboring Ukraine and that Polish farmers pried them open to intentionally spill the grain. Why? In an effort to help Ukraine's economy cope with the nation's ongoing invasion by Russia, European officials have loosened up the rules for Ukraine's farmers. Their taxes are less, they're allowed to export more crops than usual. But some farmers in Europe say this is giving Ukraine an unfair advantage over them. And Polish farmers have been blocking Ukrainian trucks from crossing the border and allegedly emptying these rail cars in protest. We're staying in Europe for our next report today on the world from A to Z. Thank you for watching the show. I'm Carl Azuz. NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, is growing. Sweden will become the 32nd nation to join the alliance of European and North American countries. It had applied for membership at the same time as Finland in 2022, but Sweden was delayed by Hungary and Turkey for political reasons. Now, they've agreed to let Sweden in. Why is this significant? Sweden has historically avoided military alliances like NATO. It's wanted to keep its international reputation as a peacemaker and neutral country. But like many other nations in Europe, Sweden was deeply troubled by Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine 2 years ago. Ukraine was not a member of NATO, and support has grown in Sweden's government and population for becoming a member. So what are the benefits? NATO members agree to defend one another. If any NATO country is attacked, the others pledge to join the fight in its defense. The military alliance was formed during the Cold War as a guard against Russian influence through the Soviet Union. Now, once again, its members are on guard against Russia. So what does Sweden have to do? Help fund NATO through defense spending and to prepare its military in case the country eventually gets involved in a conflict. What does Russia think of this? In the past, that country said Europe would be less stable if Sweden and Finland joined NATO. But beyond that, experts don't know how or if Russia will respond.
World and out. Who were Salmon P. Chase and John Marshall? Were they both U.S. founding fathers, U.S. Treasury secretaries, presidential candidates, Supreme Court justices? Both of these men who appeared on the U.S. currency in the past served as justices on the U.S. Supreme Court.
Quote, Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, a well-known part of the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. But both sides in a case before the U.S. Supreme Court this week argued that First Amendment rights were being violated. In 2021, the states of Florida and Texas passed laws that made new rules for social media companies. The laws put limits on how the companies managed what's said on their platforms and required companies to let users know if a social media post had been changed or taken down. The laws were put in place after former President Donald Trump was temporarily banned from Facebook and Twitter. Critics of that said his rights were being violated and his views silenced. The companies said he violated their policies and spread false information. Here's what's before the Supreme Court. Does the First Amendment protect social media companies in deciding what appears on their platforms, like it allows news outlets to have editorial opinions and to take sides if they choose to? Or does the First Amendment protect social media users in saying what they want without the threat of their posts being taken down, like it allows people to voice different opinions in a public space? It's a difficult question, and Supreme Court analysts say it's not clear how the justices will rule.
If this statute goes into effect, we sort of have to fundamentally change our business models.
Texas and Florida both passed laws in 2021 looking to keep social media sites from what the states described as unfairly silencing conservatives. Florida Solicitor General Henry Whitaker argues the state's law is constitutional because it targets behavior, not expression. He says the companies act like public utilities and should be regulated the same way.
The telephone company and the delivery service have no First Amendment right to use their services as a choke point to silence those they disfavor.
Opponents, including NetChoice and industry groups suing to block both laws, argue the laws violate the company's own First Amendment rights to decide what speech to welcome on their private platforms. Their attorney telling the Supreme Court the broad nature of the laws could lead to a wide range of unintended consequences.
These same companies are getting hammered by people that say we're not doing enough to keep material that's harmful to children off of these sites, and yet these laws make it impossible for us to keep material that's harmful to children off of our sites.
In Atlanta, I'm Ivan Rodriguez.
On this date in world history. On February 28, 1991, Iraqi President Saddam Hussein accepted a ceasefire, ending the Persian Gulf War. A coalition of dozens of countries, led by the United States, had launched military operations against Iraq following its invasion of neighboring Kuwait in 1990. Iraq had hoped to acquire Kuwait's rich oil reserves, but Hussein's forces were quickly driven out of that country. Tensions remained between Iraq and the U.S. and contributed to another war 12 years later. And this date in 2013 saw something that hadn't occurred in almost 600 years. The leader of the Roman Catholic Church resigned. Pope Benedict XVI had been elected in 2005, but after nearly 8 years, the 85-year-old pontiff said he could no longer carry out his duties at his advanced age. Pope Francis took over the role 2 weeks later, and Benedict XVI held the title of Pope Emeritus until his death in 2022.
Tourists wading in. Kayakers paddling out. This is, after all, California. But this is not the ocean. In fact, it's 282 feet below sea level. This is Death Valley, the lowest point in North America and the hottest place on Earth, now attracting visitors with its cool lake water. This group of friends drove in from Las Vegas.
It's like a Garden of Eden, wouldn't you think? I mean, look at it.
You can check it off your bucket list and you don't know when it's going to happen again.
Like the desert oasis it is, the last time the lake appeared was 19 years ago. Yet even for park ranger Abby Wines, the massive Lake Manly is a marvel.
Normally there's a lot more evaporative potential than there is rainfall coming in, meaning that this is usually just a dry salt flat.
On average, Death Valley gets 2 inches of rain a year. But in the last half year, the park has been walloped with nearly 5 inches of rain, Wine says, including from Tropical Storm Hillary last August.
It's the rainiest day we've ever had on record.
This is what Badwater Basin usually looks like. This is what it looks like now.
Right now, Lake Manly is about 6 miles long and 3 miles wide, but it's only about a foot deep.
Yeah. Salty. Salty, yeah.
Visitors are finding out just how salty the water is. Rangers say it's more a sight to see than taste.
I haven't seen anything living in there.
I mean, well, and also it's very salty.
It's extremely salty. It's too salty to drink, so it's not going to help the wildlife in the area at all.
But no one is bitter about getting salt-soaked, if it means enjoying the magic of a dreamy lake in the driest place in North America.
And if you do want to experience the lake for yourself, time is of the essence, because as it starts to heat up here in the desert and that evaporation rate goes up, the lake will soon disappear.
Our coast-to-coast call-out of classes catching current events kicks off with Cascade High School. Mrs. Renner Singer's class, it's great to see you in Leavenworth, Washington, the Evergreen State. And on the other side of the country, in the Tar Heel state of North Carolina, we're excited to be part of your day at West Brunswick High School. It's in the town of Shallotte. Ophidiophobia is a phobia that might not be known to you. It's the fear of snakes. Now you might be like, well, this. A team from Australia's University of Queensland recently visited Ecuador. They were searching the Amazon rainforest for what was said to be the biggest snake on the planet. Looks like they found it. The newly identified northern green anaconda is a monster. The team says it saw several of them, the longest being a female measuring close to 21 feet. They're not venomous, but they're still capable of killing deer. But who would want a mamba or snake rattle and roll with that? Many would taipan such an idea that puts you crate into harm's way. There are a ton of reasons to copperhead the other direction, to indigo racer away like a rat without being asked, finding vine to worm your way out of the water to someplace less constricting. I'm Carl Azuz, not Coral Azuz, and I won't slither out of bringing you more news and puns tomorrow on The World from A to Z.